Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex or Nuzz here, and today's video is going to be the start of a new series that will be all about gear setups. So I've had a lot of people ask me in my comment section as well on my streams, do you really need great gear to do high level PVM and to do it well, and how much does good gear affect PVM? Well, in today's video, we are going to find that out. My plan for this series is to go over my regular, higher level gear setup for a certain boss, and then I'll look at the costs, the average kill speed, and the kills per hour, and we'll look at a more budget-friendly setup and compare the same thing. So for this video, I will be doing Arraxi and talking about all my findings and statistics. So just a note, I still will be using Annihil and full manual combat, as this video isn't really a test of skill, but it's more of a way to look at how much money and gear affects your kill time and if it's worth it or not. I will also refrain from using something like Greater Ricochet, which costs about 1.5 bill, and I'll refrain from using tier 99 prayers, which cost around 700 mil, while I'm using the budget setups. So I'll be using the setups for different bosses and I'll be giving you my findings. Let me know if you're excited for this series by clicking the like button and subscribing so you don't miss any more series, and it also helps get the video out more if you leave a like, and let me know in the comments what boss you want to see next in this type of video. So we are going to first start by looking at the setups. Alright, so first we're going to look at the setups that I'll be testing today and see how much they cost. So starting with my high level setup, which is what I normally do Arraxi in, I'm using full Serenic that's perked out with best in slot perks like Biting 4, etc. I'm using Essence of Finality with Dark Bow spec, Ascensions with Precise 6 and Chroming 4. I've got Fleeting Boots, Nightmare Gauntlets, Ruby Becriminal Bolts with the occasional Hydrix Becriminal Bolt switch. I've got Saren Godbow for spec. I'll be using Greater Ricochet and tier 99 prayer. Greater Ricochet costs 1.4 bill, while tier 99 range prayer costs about 750 mil. In total, with all my gear, perks, abilities, to get this setup, the same exact setup as me, you have to spend somewhere around the 5.2 billion GP range, which safe to say is pretty expensive. So in total, I'd probably spend around 5 million GP per hour if you include my pocket slot items, Becriminal Bolts, Essence of Finality charges, and other food and stuff. That's how much I probably spend per hour in supplies and stuff like that. So now let's see how the budget setup compares. So moving on to the budget setup, I am using full Armadillo armor with Ascension hand grips. Sorry that the photo is wrong. I accidentally equipped the wrong grips. I'm also using the Farsight sniper necklace. I'm using a kiln cape, wyvern crossbow, which is probably the most expensive part of the setup, with Precise 6 and Equilibrium 4. I'm using Luck of the Dwarves, Scrimshaw of Cruelty for extra damage, although it's not really needed. So with the Scrimshaw included, we are at about 2.3 mil out per hour in cost of supplies. But without the Scrimshaw, you're looking at way less, of about 500k to 1 million GP per hour in cost of supplies. I just decided to use the Scrimshaw for a little extra damage boost, seeing as our gear is much lower tiered. However, like I said, I probably didn't have to. So my total cost to buy all this gear is around 175 mil if you include the Luck of the Dwarves, mostly consisting of the 100 mil wyvern crossbow, which is our main thing, but all the other things add up a little bit. But it's still significantly cheaper than my normal setup, almost 30 times as cheap. We have no Greater Ricochet, we've got normal overloads, we've got normal range prayer, and we're gonna see how it goes. So let's get into the kills and see how I did with each setup. So with my high level setup, there was really nothing special about my kills. I was doing middle path with darkness path open for all of these kills. So I averaged around 330-second kills with this setup, and it was really easy to just crush Arraxi on P4 with Greater Ricochet and Saren Godbow spec. And as for my budget setup, well, I noticed a lot with the budget setup. So the first thing I noticed was I used a lot more food. This was mostly because I needed to last longer, and I couldn't just rely on DPSing the boss down. In places where I would otherwise use something like Greater Ricochet or Saren Godbow spec to get Rax to the next phase, I would have to sit there and use basics while waiting for my thresholds to come back, which means I would take a lot more special attacks from Arraxi. I would run out of damaging abilities a lot more often. Without Nightmare Gauntlets for Snipe, I would hit way less with Snipe. I would also accidentally walk my Rapid Fire because I didn't have my Fleeing Boots, which was, I noticed how much I love Fleeting Boots, which are really only like a 30 to 40 mil upgrade, so I could have included them in this budget setup, but I decided not to just to see how it would go. Not having the Essence of Finality with Debo spec, or especially the Reaper effect, I noticed myself hitting a lot more zeros than I usually do. And all around, it was just much more of a struggle. I still had the same skill that I have at all bosses, but not being able to deal as much damage really causes you to eat a lot more food and use a lot more supplies. Somewhere like P4, where I would normally just SGB spec and Rax would die, I had to Devotion and Onslaught to even be able to keep up my damage and avoid the core. Knowing all this, we're now going to look at the kills per hour difference and some similar statistics. So when we look at our comparison for our high level setup, we ended up averaging 3 minute and 30-second kills, which ended up being 17 kills per hour. Our total cost per hour was around 5 million GP with a 5.2 billion GP cost for gear and abilities. For our budget setup, our average kill was around 4 minutes and 40 seconds for around 12 kills per hour, which is about a minute and 10 seconds more than our high level setup. We spent way less on buffs, but surprisingly, we actually spent more on food costs and brew costs than the high level setup because we ended up having to eat so much more. And we spent around 500k to 2 million GP per hour, depending on your pocket slot item, with 175 mil cost for gear. So in conclusion, we did get 5 extra kills per hour with our high level setup. The other thing that I realized was doing higher in rage with the budget setup was going to be really hard, if not impossible, without a yak. This factors a bit into this discussion because I can do 300% in rage Arraxi with my high level setup with a Nihil without too much trouble, but I was even struggling at 0% Rax with the budget setup, so this is an interesting note. However, I feel in conclusion, you don't need an insane 5 billion GP gear setup to do Arraxi and to do Arraxi well. If I had added something like Fleeting Boots, a Reaper necklace, and Nightmare Gauntlets, and Pernix for an extra 200 to 250 mil to make this budget setup around the 400 mil mark, I think that setup would have honestly been just fine for me, and even I could have gone into higher in rages. However, this is for something like Arraxi, which Arraxi is time gated, which means no matter how good your gear is, you have to sit there and wait to move on. For instance, at P1, I would finish DPSing Arraxi down with my high level setup when the web was at about 40 to 50% burned. But with my budget setup, I had to wait until it was at about 80 to 90% burned before I actually damaged Rax to 0 health. But I couldn't move on in either scenario. But what if I could? What if I could have moved on from the first phase? Then obviously the higher level setup would shave even more time off. So we're gonna check at a boss that you don't have to wait, and the more DPS you deal, the faster the boss is killed. Well, next episode of the series, we are going to take an in-depth look at Raksha and see how a budget versus high-level setups compare. If you guys like this video and this idea and are excited for the Raksha video coming next, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so I know you enjoyed it, and subscribe of course so you don't miss out on any more videos. Also, make sure to comment below and tell me what bosses you want to see these comparisons for next, and let me know anything you'd like added or changed for this series. I'm open to all suggestions. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.